Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail C. Martin, and tonight we are talking about bunker head cannon. But before we dive into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Wrenn.
Hello, my name is Wrenn Sims. I am a longtime con runner, 30 some years, and I married the guy who wrote the first Supernatural novel. So hey, tie-in novel. So hey,
Okay.
I think I took home the prize in this case. So anyway, or depending on whether it was a good prize or the better prize, I got.
Yeah. Are you married to Keith?
Yeah.
He mentions you. He mentions you all the time on Facebook. So
He talks about me. It's so sweet.
yes, he does. He's very sweet.
Yep.
Now I'm glad to have a face to the name.
Melissa.
Wanted to make sure I didn't muted myself already. Hi, I'm Melissa. I have been a fan of Supernatural since the night the pilot aired. By day, I'm a technical writer, and at night, I occasionally write really, really short microfics.
Very nice. Lola.
My name's Lola Laracy. I'm a writer, and I've been watching Supernatural since it appeared on CW or WB or whatever it was 17 years ago. My brain just broke. Sorry.
Carole.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I've been a fan of Supernatural since season 3. I started writing fanfic in 2012, which can all be found on AO3. And I love coming on continual panels and talking about Supernatural.
And I'm Gail C. Martin and Morgan Bryce. I write epic and urban fantasy as Gail and urban fantasy male paranormal romance as Morgan, but all my modern worlds are ones where Sam and Dean could walk in and feel right at home. I fell in love with Supernatural halfway through season 11 and binge watched 11 seasons in time for the start of season 12 and just haven't stopped falling down the rabbit hole ever since. So I am thrilled to be here talking about one of my favorite places, which is the bunker.
Mine too.
So this is all, we got to see pieces of the bunker. And I would have loved to have gotten to actually see the actual set. I would have loved it if they could have preserved it like, they did with like the Harry Potter sets and some of those. But for as big a set as it was, we know that the bunker had to have things we didn't see yet. So we'll just keep going around and you can name what else you think there was that we didn't get to see. So Wrenn, what's your first headcanon about what's in the bunker?
We did see a microscope at one point, and we knew the telescope was there. It had to have had a full-on lab in there. They had to have a lab. But you never saw it in the show, of course, because neither one of them are that scientifically bent, but, well, Sam might be. But there had to have been a full-on, up to 1957 level lab. And that would have been cool, but extremely expensive to do.
Now we know they had a sick bay. They had some sort of a medic area because we got a few glimpses of that. But yeah, you're right. Why wouldn't they have had
lab?
Yeah,
1957 era.
And it would also probably be where they store their samples, their weird, like witchy samples, because they would kind of go together. Witchy lab experiments.
Yeah. Melissa.
Okay, so my first headcanon is not actually a different room or space in the headcanon. My first headcanon is that our mutual friend and oftentimes continual panel guest, Anne, has snuck into the bunker, stolen all the china, and made off with it because she is obsessed with that china. And so there's my headcanon that she's managed to steal all the china while the boys are off on an adventure somewhere.
Yeah, because she's got 4 of us haunting eBay and all the places you can buy used diner china, looking for that red wave buffalo china pattern. And how many diners had that pattern? And we haven't been able to turn up a coffee cup for her yet. So yes, I think she deserves to have snuck into the bunker and made off with a coffee
And,
cup.
and how did she do it? Obviously, she's a witch who is at least as powerful as Rowena, maybe more so, but we never knew it this whole time. We thought we knew her, but we didn't.
Well, for all the wardings, you know how many people just sort of came and went in the bunker?
I know.
I have rant.
People would pop in and pop out.
I
Yeah.
have a full-on rant of this out of scope of this show, so this panel, so
Yeah.
about people traipsing in. Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
opposed to ranch.
Totally secure, except when it's not. Yeah, Carol, how about you?
Well, I go along with it. We never really saw the full, sick bay kind of thing. You have to think with, even though they didn't hunt themselves so much, between research and taking care of themselves, there probably had to be like, a pretty complete medical outfitted, of that era anyway. Certainly we've seen that pop up in fan fiction in many ways. And I kind of like the idea also of there's so many books and rooms full of curios and artifacts and all of this stuff. I picture this massive card catalog.
Yes.
Because they didn't have a computer to be able to say, find this thing. So they had this like massive categorization, device where you could go in and look up like, I need to find, the ruby slippers or
The
something.
Boolean system.
Mhm.
Old
Yeah.
school, I remember.
So yeah, there's this big old heavy this heavy duty card catalog. They could like go look up the what did we do with the transcripts from that demon and stuff.
Yeah, probably several card catalogs,
Oh,
depending on
yeah.
whether you're talking about books or manuscripts or relics, you need.
Cursed objects.
Artifacts. Yeah.
So I keep imagining that there's a level in the bunker that looks a lot like the basement in the Biltmore estate.
I'm so jealous, by the way.
If you've ever been to the Biltmore in North Carolina, it's America's largest private residence. It's really a castle that was built by George Vanderbilt. And it has a whole swimming pool in the basement. It has a bowling alley and changing rooms. It has a big party room. And then, of course, on another level, a sub-level, there are the boilers, and it had dual power from coal and electricity. So there's this massive period board for all the electricity, which it was electrified in 1895. So it has been modernized since then, but the old board is there. And I keep thinking that the bunker has to have those levels to it. So I would have loved to have seen them like being chased or chasing some sort of creature through the boiler level at the bunker. Because when they dealt with Mrs. Butters, they were still kind of dealing with the control room. They weren't really down in the boiler room, which everybody knows is super creepy. So that's my headcanon, is that it looks an awful lot like those levels at the Biltmore, minus the gift shop.
I'm going to interject. I recently read The Shining for the first time. I watched the movie dozens of times, but I never read the book before. And the boiler room is a big part of Jack Torrance's downfall. So be wary of boiler rooms.
If you've ever had to go in a real boiler room someplace for real, they're just creepy as all get out. So yeah, they're no good boiler rooms. All right, round two. What else is in the bunker that we haven't seen? Back to Wrenn.
What else? Damn. Well, there has to be a repair shop for the cars.
I was
No way it
thinking
was
that
just a
too.
garage. There has to be a repair shop.
Yeah.
1957 and earlier, that you don't,
With the
have
hydraulics.
that many vehicles they had there.
Yeah. With all the tools and
No
everything.
tools,
Hydraulics.
vintage tools. Again, these are things you couldn't do because of the money for the show. You'd have to deal with, you'd have to source vintage tools. I mean, we do not have the situation that we'll deal with later about the vehicles, like Dorothy's motorcycle, it's too late for Dorothy anyway, it's like 2 years too late. But still, you need to have different types of tools to work on all these vehicles. All we saw was a nice, pretty, pristine garage.
I mean, and they're out in the middle of BFE, so, you know, and who did it? I mean, they were men of letters and they wore suits and they were
Support
animals.
staff. Where
must
was
have-
the support staff?
And we never heard about the support staff except for poor Mrs. Butters. There must have been.
There had to be more than her.
They probably kidnapped a whole bunch of other elves who managed to escape, and
They
those were
probably
the
did.
garage elves.
Poor
Kind of
Dobby.
need support staff to run that, because these
Yeah.
guys weren't. They were kind of all dorks, you know.
Yeah, and they were just like, we just read and we wear suits and that's all we do. You imbeciles.
Well, I mean, that's true. I mean, was Mrs. Butters the only person who fixed all their meals?
She
And
couldn't have.
well,
Because they captured her at one point. So who
She's
was there
magic.
before?
she's
It
magic.
could be magic.
She's magic.
So,
You
I
think
mean,
the cars were magically fixed maybe too?
I don't know.
Possibly.
They couldn't have had a whole bunch. If they had a bus dropping off the staff at their secret lair, it wouldn't be very secret.
That
And
feels so
also-
wrong.
Why did they kidnap her and enslave her, basically, if they had a full support staff? They wouldn't have
Right.
needed to.
That's
There had
So
to be
they
more
may
than
have
just
they
her.
may have had people to take care of the cars, or they just
Maybe.
drove the cars into town
Okay.
to be worked on at
That's-
the local repair shop.
Well, except for if it doesn't start and they can't get it out of the garage. But that could be why they had so many cars. If one didn't start, they just did another.
Uh-huh.
They just started another. They're like,
Also, why
That
were all the
Bentley's
cars
not-
there when they left? I mean, we have two choices here. Either Abaddon killed them in the bunker, they were the bodies, or they all left to go after her, and then why are the vehicles still there?
Good point. Yeah,
I
good
thought,
point.
yeah, I thought she either killed them in the bunker or she went after them and killed them in their homes and
Where
stuff.
yeah,
are the
because
bo-
we
where are
saw
the
a
bodies?
teacup. I rewatched the episodes leading up to where they found the bunker and then where they found the bunker. And there was a teacup still left, like it had just been drunk. So it seemed like a very quick thing.
Or they dropped it and left because they don't clean up after each other. But then why
Well-
didn't Miss Butters clean up after her?
And Mrs.
Well, that-
Butters should have, yeah.
Why didn't she clean up the teacup?
But then
Again,
it, but also-
because they don't, we're nitpicking, but these are continuity errors
I
that
always
happen.
nitpick.
Yeah.
Always nitpick.
So
But-
I really don't, it's one of those cases of if they fell where they were, if she got into the bunker and they fell where they were, then where are the bodies?
Wait, but in Mrs. Butters' episode, didn't she say that they deactivated the bunker and that's why she was in stasis for so long?
So they left, but left the cars?
That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense, does it?
They all carpooled.
Or maybe they had more cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had more cars. Because
Yeah.
a lot of the cars were not, those were vintage. Those were past 1957 or whatever the end of the bunker was. Those were
7.
older.
Older
cars.
than
There were a lot of-
1957.
There were a lot of older cars. So that's just, they all took their own cars.
That's their Jay Leno garage. And then they
And-
had, yeah, okay.
Now, question, I know it's just showed up in fanfic, but did we ever really get to see a gymnasium? I know there have been scenes in fanfics where they were working out in the bunker gym. It would make sense, all these guys.
Men of letters though?
Some of
They're-
them had to
they're-
have been active. Not all of them were bookworms.
They would
Maybe,
still want to,
maybe.
even if they weren't hunting, they would want to be fit. They
I
were
would
still
think
even-
so.
active enough, they'd want to be
Yeah.
fit. And I totally picture like an old style gym where
I
they
know you want to picture it,
bag,
Carol.
maybe they had a little
Actually,
boxing area and
1950.
Even-
there was no
Wait till it
pellets
comes
and
around to
bikes
me
or
again, because I
anything.
got one.
Even
Well,
if there was no gym when they moved in,
Bowling pins? Yeah, sorry.
even if there was no gym when they moved in, there was once Sam moved in.
They would have made one.
Because that would, especially after Charlie hooked them up with the credit card, they would have
Yeah.
had a treadmill
Treadmill.
and
That's true.
weights, and they might have had to clean out a room, but they absolutely would have had that. And
That's
why we never saw that on screen with a chance to see Jared without a shirt?
Right. It's
Come
because
on.
the showrunners were mostly straight men. That's why. That's a problem.
They needed to get Sarah back for that.
Mhm.
She would have been my, okay, although that might have been awkward for her. Yeah, we need to see the boys without a shirt.
Oh, she would have had no problem.
Runner.
Okay.
Right. That's what they do. Wrenn, you look like you've got something in mind.
I'd go, and I was waiting for it to come around to me again. Other people can talk.
I picture a room because there's a very clubby atmosphere to this, that very British men club atmosphere.
Oh, I was thinking like, okay, sorry.
Lola wants a disco ball, but I think Carole's talking about gentlemen's.
Okay.
Yes. So I
Gentlemen's club
picture-
means something different to us. Okay.
I picture like a wine cellar,
Mhm.
That, I
You
would
know,
see that, yeah.
possibly with a little side cabinet that's a humidor, you
Yeah.
know, for
Mhm.
cigars. and stuff.
Cigars and whiskey
But I
and
definitely know
stuff.
wine and brandy and
Yeah.
things like
Carol
all.
is stating
That's
my
true.
my idea, which I know will come someone else and say it. Having a smoking room.
Right, they totally would.
1957.
With the
They're gonna
smoking
have a smoking
jacket,
room.
the purple velour jacket.
Yeah, with the
Totally.
with the highball glass and the and yeah.
Exactly. The gentleman's room where women aren't allowed because women don't smoke cigars. I don't smoke
It's
cigars
no,
either.
it's
but-
where they go to relax
do.
when they're not working or studying. They need to relax.
That's right.
Mhm. And have a few card games, maybe play some poker.
Mhm.
Yeah, or billiards, certainly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, my brain is back furnishing it from Biltmore. So,
Yeah.
Oh, how nice. Wouldn't that be beautiful? It's like Downton Abbey, but cooler.
and underground. Melissa. And
Not inside the bunker, although it could have been, but Sam had a witch garden.
Oh. Okay.
Absolutely. That, and yeah, the original Men of Letters wouldn't have, because they looked down on witches. They would have been sneering of it, but I absolutely think that Sam would have either inside with grow lamps or outside had grew protective kind of plants and stuff that he used commonly in spells.
But now, even though the Men of Letters and the Hunters are all down on witches, I was thinking about this today, and I thought about it before. They are so down on witches, but they use spellcraft. They use, Eye of Toad and Nude of Greenwich and all that. They use all
But
that.
it's
So
scientific for them. It's scientific.
I know.
for them.
Ooh, yeah, but they use it.
Men
So
do it.
yeah,
they're
hypocrisy.
witches in their own way.
Yeah, hypocrisy. I mean,
It is hypocrisy. It pisses me off.
Misogynistic,
Century-
misogynistic.
Very
hypocrisy.
misogynist, because when we think of witches, we think of women. Yeah, very
We've got
misogynist.
centuries of herbalry is now science. When women did it, it was herbalry. When men did it, it was science.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're on Carol. What's your
Well,
head
I
canon?
did, I broke out of turn and I had the humidor and wine cellar. I
That's
cut in front of, I cut in front of Melissa. Sorry, Melissa.
Oh, okay.
So we're back to Wrenn.
I can see having, we see the kitchen and it has like a big walk-in freezer, I think, and it has some big refrigerators. But if they actually had 20 some people there, you need more pantry space and maybe refrigeration space. And I'm thinking that there was probably a sense of the Men of Letters that were almost like preppers in terms of, well, if the world ends, we can live in here for X number of, because we've got everything, stored. So I'm thinking that probably, they probably had storage areas like that. They just weren't counting on Ketch ever reversing the airflow and, suffocate.
I'm
A
picturing
large walk-in pantry.
yeah,
You would need
I'm
a large
picturing
walk-in pantry.
shelves with the big cans of like, applesauce and
For the
green,
women,
all
the
the
women,
vegetables and
'cause-
fruits all canned, in
And
go in.
1957, they may even have had some of the earliest. No, they probably wouldn't. They're too far west to have some of the earliest TV dinners. So no.
Well, and
Where did
and
the
the-
Swanson come
354,
from?
but that was Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So no, they
Staples-
probably wouldn't have them yet.
yeah,
Although they're
Staples-
ahead of the curve. Huh?
Well,
Yeah,
part of
listen.
the reason for early TV dinners had to do with truckloads full of frozen turkeys that couldn't sell, and so somebody hit on the idea in Pittsburgh to turn them into.
That was
frozen
like a Thanksgiving thing, right?
1954.
That was it
50
Swanson?
53
I
or
remember,
54, yeah.
I read
53 or
about that.
54.
I'm in
is when that
charge of
happened.
trivia for my day job, so Thanksgiving trivia, that was one of the trivia questions.
So I basically I gave Keith the information when he did the rewatch of the Outside of Scope, Enterprise, when they went back in time.
I
And
don't
I'm
care
like,
about outside.
yeah,
of
they
Scope.
were in the right area to have
Okay.
frozen dinners, but every
Hmm.
single one of them would have been meat based,
Yeah,
and Vulcans are vegetarians, so no, that wouldn't
Yeah.
happen.
Melissa,
Good point.
So if the bunker essentially shut down in 1957 with Abaddon, can you imagine opening up that fridge when the boys finally got there, and opening up the pantry? I'm just saying.
But maybe the
pantry would
wording
be okay, 'cause
covers the
it's-
food.
The pantry would be okay because it's all like cans and jars and stuff, but the fridge would be like, whoa.
Well, I think the wording would have
I had
covered
to
it.
exercise the fridge.
It depends on what.
They
Yeah.
threw it out.
Well, Lola's
I-
probably right. Depends
if-
on the level of warding.
And
Mm.
if Dorothy and the Wicked Witch are still alive, I think their Swanson TV dinners are still alive.
Yeah. well, after all the hotels the
Razor
boys were,
burn.
sleeping in, they probably wouldn't have been as completely grossed out about getting rid of the fridge, because they've probably seen pretty bad in all those skeevy motels.
Mhm. Honestly, my biggest rant of all lays with the idea that there is no way the British men of letters would have left all of the chapter houses and the bunker alone
Yeah.
Mhm.
for
That's
57.
a
Once
good
they knew
point.
the American men of letters were gone, all of that information.
But that's one of the schisms that happens because you have, showrunner and showrunner.
Yeah, I know. That's the reason for it. It's completely because of the story. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's one of the big glaring holes for me in the storylines, is because there's no way they'd have left that stuff alone. And then we had Ketch walk in because he's a man of letters, so that means it could have been we couldn't get in, but no, they needed Ketch to walk in at one point. Yeah,
But the question with that becomes, did they back then know or care that there were American men of letters, or was that something that
they knew they were in contact. There's one, I forget which episode it was, but they were actually in contact with the British men of letters. They in one of the ones that went back in history, the one with the U-boat, the one with the.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta
The
look
one
up.
about
I gotta
the-
look up which one it was. Sorry, I'm not that extreme when it comes
That's
to it. I
okay.
remember this. I remember
That's
what goes
okay.
on. I don't remember the names all the time.
We don't
Mhm.
either.
So they knew they existed, and then they knew they were gone, and then they waited for how many years until. Yeah,
It's possible they didn't care because they had England completely warded off from monsters and everything. So it's possible that they didn't want to reach out because they didn't want whatever the heck happened to America to happen to them.
okay. Maybe.
Well,
That's what
yeah,
I'm thinking.
there's also
Possible.
the British arrogance of,
But
They
again,
didn't care.
the UK
couldn't
is part.
possibly
The
be good.
Canada's part of the UK. That and they
That's
totally
true.
left them alone too. So.
true. No, it's a good
Yeah.
point. I mean, it's definitely something that needed to be
Yeah.
explained at least.
It's storylines. It's you get continuity. You get this continuity issues because of 15 years of you can never be completely.
We pay more attention than the showrunner sometimes.
They're,
That's
they're,
'cause we-
So we
that's
forgive
because
them
we
because we
watched-
love the show.
We watched the entire thing.
Right. And I'm sure some of the showrunners didn't, or maybe they just watched it once,
Or they watched
Yeah.
it while they were cleaning house.
Right, exactly. Or they
I
had someone
rebinged
tell them
all
what
of
happened.
it in COVID. So all of it in
Yeah.
COVID. I
Yeah.
rebinged from the very beginning because I had nothing else to do. I had one half-an-hour meeting every Tuesday, and that was it.
Mhm.
No, we're
Sounds
not
like
coming
a
back
good
yet.
night.
No, we're not coming back yet.
Yeah.
Government, and I was paid half wages for that. Your government money at work.
That's good.
I
Well,
got paid.
I watched
for
the same, I did the
not saying
same
how
thing.
much.
I'm never going back. I'm happy to say it's official. They said we're never going back to the office. They even gave away the furniture.
Great, I'm so happy.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Melissa, back to headcanon.
What are we talking about again?
Headcanon.
For headcanon. Besides the
Boom.
dish.
Oh, she broke. It only took half an hour.
Garden,
More.
garage. Where do they eat? Where is the dining room? Because if they had all of these rooms
They
for
okay.
men, the kitchen was a four top. The table in the kitchen was a four top.
That's true.
The library table is not a dining table. That's a
No,
library
they wouldn't eat
table.
on that. No.
That's, and it's, I don't know that it was
1957
necessarily
sensibilities here.
convenient.
1957 sensibilities here. They'd have to
think-
have a dining room.
I would think so. They would have a full dining room with staff probably.
But again, no staff. You're not
They're
gonna have.
built more.
Yeah,
Um,
elves,
elves.
Yeah, elves.
house
poor
elves.
Dobby.
Maybe the house elves got the socks when the men of letters were all killed by Abaddon and took off.
You were free.
They all
Yeah,
got a sock.
yeah.
Well, and I think that's a great point, Melissa. And I think also, you might even have, well, the china that our friend really likes was what was in the kitchen for like breakfast. I can't imagine these, snooty guys not having fine china
They would.
and a full silver service and, the good stuff. Just like I think there's gotta be, not only a wine cellar, but a full bar, maybe with a spell on it that continually refreshes the alcohol, but something that has all the hard liquor too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because
When-
to go with the humidor, yeah.
When Mrs. Butters, when they did the family dinner with Mrs. Butters, were they in the library at that table?
Remember.
They were at the same table that we saw in Lebanon where John and Mary and the boys ate.
Which is still
There's the
not gonna
dining
be big
table.
enough for the whole Men of Letters crew, because that was maybe, well, that would seat maybe 6. So somewhere they had to have the big table that would seat like 20, so
I
they
would
could all sit
think.
down and have a meal kind of thing.
I would think.
Mhm. Well, and again, I'm going back to Biltmore as a model, but they don't just have one kitchen. They have the baking kitchen. They have the rotisserie kitchen, and
They have
then
the butler's pantry.
they have the butler's pantry, which is a 2-story affair, and they have a gigantic laundry room because the laundry facilities at that time, somebody had to change the sheets.
That's true.
Most of these
were
people are-
big.
I
Those
think most
big.
of these men are going home, not all of them. but
Well, that's
a
what
number
I
of
was
them will be
gonna
going home.
say. We're assuming that they all lived there.
Some of them would have, but not all
Well,
of them.
even if they
Oh,
didn't all
yeah.
live there, they probably had times where they all would still at
Would
least
stay.
there,
They're
you know,
Yeah.
like
there.
During
maybe they took
crises.
shifts and like it's your week and it's your week, so that
Yeah.
somebody's kind of always on duty, or during a crisis and they all have to be there or whatever. I mean, they have all those rooms.
Like
Like a firehouse.
Clearly
Mhm.
somebody,
You owe me a drink.
clearly somebody is supposed to be sleeping in these rooms,
Right,
even if they're
right.
not all there all the time. So yeah, they would need and so that also then leads me to this.
Mhm.
Where is like the bathrooms and showers?
Good point.
Now they
Is
all
it like Star Trek? They don't go to the bathroom?
they noticed they all have sinks in their room, which is really great because you can wash your hands, you can shave, you can brush your teeth
Yeah.
without having to leave your room. But there have to be bathrooms and there have to be shower rooms. Like, is it a big communal shower with like several heads along the walls, like a boys'
Dorm.
locker room, or
Well, they
what?
do have a
I've never seen
shower.
any-
Because I like I said, I rewatched some of the episodes, and Dean comes in and tells Sam, "Oh, the shower pressure is just fabulous," or whatever. So they do have showers. It's just, where are they?
Right. I kind of picture like a big rectangular room, and
stalls.
there's like half a dozen and half a dozen, and they're all
Like in a dorm room.
but who knows? We never see any of that. We see like certainly in the last episode, we see Sam come back and he's clearly had a shower,
Yeah,
but we
Mhm.
never see where they
I know.
Not that
Episode
that-
12, oh, no, sorry, season 12, episode 22,
Uh-huh.
Dean is looking at blueprints.
Oh, that's
And
right.
there's a shower room on the other side of the garage, according to the blueprints. I just went, I was remembering something and I had to actually look it up.
But they didn't know about the garage at first, did they?
No,
Mm-mm.
but he found the blueprints for
Okay.
the bunker.
Well, that was when they used the when they were stuck in the bunker and he used the grenade launcher to get out, right? Because they were looking at the schematics for the bunker and trying to figure out how to get out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he took, there is one set of video short, of Dean in the shower, just to get his head to just below his neck. And the room, he's under a shower head and the room is blurry behind him. But it looks like it's
Oh.
white tile with black, like you see in late 1940s, 1950s, white tile, black edge tile, in geometric patterns around the room. I'm looking at it right now.
That would make
Hmm.
sense.
I lost
Okay.
everything after Dean in a shower.
I know. Well, that's the whole point of this show is where are the showers and why didn't we see more of them?
That would
That's
be
right.
nice, that
That's the whole thing.
I just stuck the blueprints in the.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Wrenn.
So what are some of the other nice to haves or must haves? If they had a clinic area, a medical bay, they had to have had a morgue. I would,
And a surgery area.
in a
I bet they
surgery-
had a little surgery area, because what if they actually capture, both to help patch up their own people, but I'll bet, they capture a demon or a monster of some type, that you can't tell me they wouldn't have done a little dissection there to kind of learn more about them.
Yeah, I mean, these people had a dungeon. So having a morgue isn't that much of a stretch. Unless the dungeon was for recreational purposes.
And Melissa finds the morgue
Oh, Melissa's
particularly
done.
amusing.
Melissa. No, I think she's laughing at the recreational torture dungeon.
No, it's
I'm sorry.
definitely
All
the
I can
morgue.
picture-
Oh, okay.
All I can
Then I'm
picture
laughing at the torture
is when
dungeon.
Kevin first arrives there and he's like, he thinks it's a sex dungeon.
That's what I would think too. I'd be like, well,
Oh, he was so
Yeah,
innocent.
I am looking at the blueprints and stuff. The garage actually has a tiny little, relatively small tool bench in it, but no way to lift the cars, nothing at all that I can see. And I'm looking at what is definitely a 1955 or 6 T-Bird. So why they in 1957 didn't leave with that one, I don't know. And I gotta figure out the other one is. Anyway,
This
That
is
was
a
its
great
impression.
site. Thank you for finding this.
I'm a car person. I find car things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Well,
watched all of Highlander, the beginning of the Highlander, and start picking out all the cars by pieces. You really have a problem.
Mhm.
Well, I had two thoughts. My first thought is, okay, so I imagine that there's a little barber shop. Because those 1950s men of letters, they like their tight little 1950s haircuts. And they probably had the barber, do the whole thing with the towel and everything. So it's probably a little room. But in my head canon, Sam doesn't go in there because it keeps trying to cut his hair. And he won't go in there. But Dean goes in there and he doesn't like the tight little 1950s haircut they give him. So he likes the, it has the thing that gives him the shave and everything. And he likes that. He's all excited. But as soon as it starts to get to his hair, he's like, oh no. And he's trying to get up and leave. And it keeps trying to get him to come back because it's all totally automated.
Oh, it's
trying to get him
automated. I
it's
was
all
like, who's
automated.
doing this?
So it's all automated. It's their version of AI and it's all totally animated. And Dean likes it, the shave and the towel and everything. But then it starts to get near his hair and he's like, nope. But when Dean was Michael was all like, give me that tight little 1950s haircut. And he got the whole thing because he's regal. So that's my headcanon.
There you go. Well, and again, we don't know how much the men of letters actually intended to live there.
Yeah.
And how much they took care of things like that in the outside world. If they actually had spouses and families, they probably took care of some of those needs out in the real world, but they certainly might have been able to duplicate some of that stuff if they were on lockdown or on a case or working around the clock to stop something. Yeah, Carol.
Well, here's a question. So we've talked about they have the smaller kitchen and then the bigger kitchens and storerooms and freezer and the butler's pantry and stuff. Who's actually preparing the food? I mean, did they have a cook? They had to have had a cook or something. I
I
don't
would
picture these
imagine.
men taking turns, whipping up a little beef stroganoff or anything. These are men who were like, I mean, they wouldn't have wanted to cook or
Especially
known
in
how to
the
cook.
50s,
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
50s, that wasn't their
So-
job. That was women's work.
They could have
So-
had a male cook too,
Mhm.
men did cook. They could have
Well,
hired a
that's,
male
you
cook.
had army
Men-
cooks, you had,
I'm not saying men didn't cook,
I'd
but
be
those
suspicious.
men wouldn't have.
Those men didn't cook. They
You
were
know.
above that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, they had to have some cooks in there.
I would imagine.
when
So
did that Mrs. Butters came into the picture? Was it early on in the bunker?
It was
or
during World War II, right? Yeah, it
World
was in
War
the
II.
So what's
40s,
the
so
day
she was
before
there
that?
early on. Because we
They were
know
long
that they
before
didn't
that.
start the bunker till like what, 36 or 38?
What about the thing with the woman who turned out to be the monster and she was dressed in a flapper's outfit? So that's the 20s.
Yeah.
But we I rewatched the episode, so I'm at an advantage. But we saw two original Men of Letters go in like 1936 or 38, and the one guy was saying it's a dump,
It was
and the
finished
other
in
guy,
30 It was
huh?
finished in 1935. So it started
Okay.
in 1932, finished in 1935, and they moved
Okay.
in right after that.
So the chapter house with the Eldritch Horror tentacle monster would have been older than the bunker in Lebanon, Kansas.
Okay, all right.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's so my headcanon for who took care of them prior to Mrs. Butters, they had Men of Letters who flunked out, guys who couldn't quite cut it,
Oh, I
but
like it.
were from Men of Letters lineage, or maybe they didn't want
Legacies.
to be, maybe they didn't want, for various reasons, didn't want to pursue that as their career.
I
So
like
they did
it.
things like taking care of the cars and cooking and
Okay.
these manly chores.
Especially
as
at
far
that
as the-
point, they were already privy
To the
what was really
information,
going
to the
on and what the
secrets.
whole scene was, and they didn't have to be, they
Someone
had
injured?
other
Someone
people.
injured in line of duty?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
a
They
good
lived there
point.
permanently, and they would,
That's a good point. So
Who
you
got
had the
injured?
heir and the spare was the one in the kitchen. Okay,
Mhm.
I get it. All right.
No, that makes sense, that
Yeah.
either they flunked out or they were injured and they couldn't
Yeah.
do the field
Yeah.
work,
Yeah,
but they already knew the secrets.
right.
Yeah, that could make
Okay, I
sense.
got it,
That
I
could work.
got it. Okay.
And then what happened to them when they got Mrs. Butters? Did they just, fire them on redundancy or,
They were
once a
they
man
were
of letters,
retired.
always a man of letters. So
Mhm.
They were retired from their,
Active duty.
Mhm.
yeah, they didn't have, they were retired from active duty. They could have been put to work doing more research
They
or
could have
just
gone to another
retired.
chapter
Whatever.
house. There were other
Yes.
chapter
True.
houses. Maybe they went to another
That's
chapter house.
true.
Not all of them were fortunate enough to have a Mrs. Butters.
That's true.
true.
Okay, or they could have just gone home. Like we said, some of these people might have actually had homes.
might have
So
actually retired.
they might have just gone home. Yeah.
Yeah, Melissa.
I have a question. It's not a headcanon. Dean's room, it's a regular wall. It might have been a plaster wall, but it was a regular wall. Sam's room is brick. Why? Why are they two different materials?
Ooh,
Good catch.
Is it?
I never thought about it. Maybe
The back-
Dean's,
Sam's got an exterior wall.
that's what I was gonna say,
or-
exterior
or a-
wall.
Or a load-bearing
But
wall. Sam's got a
That's-
Why
load-bearing
would
wall,
his
That makes sense.
and Dean's got a plaster wall, it's not load-bearing.
That makes sense.
Mm,
What, Melissa, you said
Architect
no? You said no?
nerd.
I can't buy the exterior wall because his bed is against the brick.
Well, and there's no exterior walls.
They're underground,
They're all
Well, it
underground.
would be,
It's
it
all
would be dirt
surrounded
on the other
by
side.
earth.
A load-bearing wall.
but still
basically.
load bearing, still load bearing. I could see it being load bearing, and that's why
Well,
it's brick.
But that
All
would
that
make a
they
difference in the
tried to
finish of it.
blow through in the episode with the grenade launcher was brick, wasn't it? Or was it concrete? That was concrete, right?
That was concrete because they
Concrete.
couldn't smash through it with a sledgehammer. If it had been brick, they would have been able to get through it.
Yeah.
No matter how thick
Okay.
it was, because the
Right.
mortar is going to be that loose.
Right. And that's why
Um,
they were covered in that powder too. They had that
Mhm.
concrete powder all over them.
No, it makes sense.
And it
Well,
took them 3
folks-
years to build it too. They might have built in certain things necessarily in brick and then switched. Because it took 3 years, 32 to 35 to build.
That's true. Maybe they ran out of materials and they had to switch, or different planners. There could be a load of reasons.
Okay.
Could have been a room that was split in half and they put,
Put plaster or something.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay.
All right, folks, we're almost out of time. Is there anything anybody had in mind that we haven't had a chance to mention? Because this always goes so fast.
One thing, why didn't the bunker get its baby episode? So
Oh.
this is what I'm
Oh.
thinking. This is an episode completely from the I've thought this out. Completely from the bunker's perspective. And you see, Sam and Dean talking, then Sam and Dean leave and the lights go out and there's nothing. But then you hear a weird sound, like a skitter or something. You hear a weird sound, but you never find out what it is. And then you see another scene and you see Rowena, she's doing some magic or whatever. But you can see it through the blinds, like in a closet or something, because it's the perspective of the bunker. And then they leave and then it's dark. And then you hear another like skitter scatter or whatever. And we never find out what that thing is in the bunker that only the bunker knows about.
There is actually a fan fiction about the
Oh.
lights on the table in the library where
Uh-huh.
actually those two lamps have a long relationship. And when Dean gets angry and swipes one of them off the table, the other one is grieving the loss of its partner until Sam
I
picks
like it.
the lamp and brings it back. So it's actually very emotional. And
That-
I can't look at those lamps the same way.
That's very Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's a great movie if you've never seen it, but that reminds me of that.
I bet
Carol.
they had a billiard room.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
I'm sure they must have.
So they could all like,
think about anything that the Rat Pack had would probably be in the bunker.
I would think
I
so. A music room with a phonograph.
Mm-hmm.
I would think so. Yeah. I wonder if they had a dance hall. That might be a
would
bit
require
much.
women.
That
Oh
would-
yeah, that's right.
well,
Just
maybe
Mrs.
not.
Butters.
That would
Mrs.
require women, or the
That's
litter
true.
letters are a lot closer than we thought they were.
It's always
other.
possible. It's always possible. You know what
Not
stays in
57.
what happens in MOL stays in MOL.
Okay,
That's all I'm saying.
I believe you.
It's a close secret society.
Well, there are records of, all the mining camps out west where there were no women to be had, or very few women, and there are pictures of the miner 49ers all dancing with each other,
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
and cowboys. So could have been.
It's a thing.
And
Yeah.
dancing had a different connotation at that point too.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, folks, on that note, we're going to have to wrap up, but let's have everybody say where we can find you online, and starting with Wrenn.
Starting with me,
Yeah.
I'm not that easy to find online.
Okay.
But most of my social, I'm the non-writer editor here from amongst a whole bunch of writers.
Mhm.
Most people find me through my husband, Keith DeCandido, who is the writer of the first, third, and fourth Supernatural tie-in novels, amongst a lot of other stuff. And that's really about it.
Okay.
I'm an editor, mostly nonfiction, though I do fiction. I did slog through romance for a while, editing. And nothing wrong with writing it, but I don't usually read it. But I say I abuse a private prep school education my father paid way too much money for. And college, same way. That's really about it. So find me through Keith. Find us through Keith. We're starting up. We've got a small press called Whisperwood. We're starting up. And we are looking at, I do editing jobs on the side,
Mhm.
among other things. Okay,
Cool.
next.
Melissa.
You can find me on my microfiction, and it's teeny tiny micro fan fiction on Twitter, Tin Hat Daydreams, or causing havoc in the TFWNC Facebook group that you moderate.
All
Or
right.
Hero and Continual.
It's true. Lola.
Well, my name's Lola Laracy. I'm a writer. I usually say I'm everywhere on the internet, but I suppose I should walk that back. I quit Twitter because of the billionaire who's gonna put himself not to be a billionaire anymore. I just got mad and I rage quit Twitter. And I don't do like TikTok, but I'm on Instagram, Facebook under Lola Laracy, and my birth name, which is Lola Strickland, which is a very boring name, but it's what I'm stuck with. And what else? You can Google me, and I'm all over the place. My website got broken somehow, and I tried to unbreak it, but I couldn't unbreak it. But I'm going to keep trying to unbreak it.
Okay, good enough. Carole.
I'm Carole Stokes here on Facebook, and you can find me a lot in the continual panels and also in Gail's TFWNC group. On Twitter, I am true_firesign10. On Instagram, I'm firesign10. And also on AO3, all my fanfic is under firesign10. Mind the tags. I'm also one of the co-moderators for So Get This, the Lore of Supernatural Fanfic podcast, and you can find that on Spotify.
And I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com, all the social media, and I'm on most of it, is under one of those names. Spell it right and you'll find me. I do run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business. But most of the time, I'm here on Continual. So thank you so much to all of our wonderful, wonderful panelists. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up on Continual. So we'll see you online.